Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here. Damien, hi. This is some comic book thoughts on some of the indie books I've read lately. Just go with what's on the top of this pile here. Lady Killer 2, Volume 2, Number 2. This took me by surprise. I enjoyed the first issue. I, of course, enjoyed the previous series. This one started off in a direction that I wasn't guessing at. So various people want to partner up with our heroine. I've now forgotten her name. But there's some interesting twists going on here, plus some cool arts. It read very fast. I was surprised when it was over, but I'm definitely looking forward to more to come. A thought occurred to me that because I saw Jolie Jones complain in the middle of the first volume of Lady Killer about how much work it was to do a book basically all on her own, although she did have someone helping her with the writing in the first series, but not on this one, and of course she has a colorist. But I suppose it's her baby, and she has to probably promote it and just make sure everything happens. So in the first Lady Killer, she kills everyone in the organization that she belongs to, that she works with. Now in the second Lady Killer, she's freelance. She's on her own, and there's so much more hassles and things to take care of. And I almost wonder if that reflects, in some conscious or unconscious way, Jolie Jones' experience as a freelance artist and what it's like to work as part of a big team for a company book versus doing everything all by herself. And now the character in this issue is being seduced back into being on teams, or perhaps pressured back to being on teams. Two different teams in a way. And, my idea that there's a metaphor here for Jolie Jones's life could be totally off. I do know she recently signed an exclusive with DC, which I'm sure she's going to finish Lady Killer. Whether she'll continue more indie work on her own while working on the exclusive for DC, I don't know. It's harder for an artist. I know writers often have a deal where they're exclusive to DC, but they can still do some indie work, some personal projects. They just can't work for Marvel, basically, or other commercial entities. Like probably can't do licensed products and stuff. Anyway, that was just one thing that passed through my brain. But I really, really enjoyed that issue of Lady Killer. I really enjoyed this issue of Birthright. This issue, and I assume next issue too, is where there's a lot of payoff. It really felt like a lot of stuff that was set up was taken up to a higher level here. Some big revelations, some more at stake. It was a really good issue, and it was a really nice payoff for it's issue 19, for having stuck with this. I think if you're someone thinking of reading this in trades, I would have recommended it before, but now I can recommend it more highly for picking up in trades, picking up back issues, or going the digital route with this to catch up with it. It really feels like it's going to have some really good payoff. The fantasy world just got richer, 19 issues in. We got a new layer to things that really intrigues me. The art continues to be, really excellent by Bresson, or however you pronounce his name. A lot of the best art was actually in smaller panels, but those probably won't show up well here. But overall, the art and coloring here is just really excellent. So I'm really psyched that I've stuck with Birthright for 19 issues. It doesn't even feel like 19 issues. It's definitely always been a good read. There have been some issues where it felt like they were kind of between issues and such, and it certainly will read really well in trade. Another delight was Faith number 3 in this new ongoing Faith, because we already had 4 issues of Faith before that, and before that a 0 issue of Faith. But anyway, so it's funny to say Faith issue 3. But this one takes place entirely at a Comic-Con. It's a love letter to Comic-Cons and to people who go to Comic-Cons and to people who do cosplay. It's wonderful. It just hits everything just right. I just recently, as many of you know, went to a Comic-Con, and I haven't gone to many, so perhaps this felt even more like a good read to me because it's so recent in my memory. It's such still kind of a new experience for me. But yeah, if that at all intersects with you, and you want to read a really fun, funny, but exciting superhero adventure at a comic book convention, this does it just right. And it's continued in next issue. I assume it'll probably be a 2-issue story. I don't know what they're aiming for. The last storyline, I guess, was 2 issues. Anyway, I've liked Faith, and now I feel like I've loved Faith the character, but now I feel like I'm loving the story that Jody Houser is telling. So that is really excellent. Well, so I didn't look at how I'd stack these. I have a little bit less strong reactions to the remaining comics here. Let's see, maybe I'll put the one that I like the most of the remaining 3 at the bottom. I just switched it. Not that I didn't like Doom Patrol from DC's Young Animals, so I suppose it's not really an indie book. Doom Patrol is IP controlled by DC Comics. And this is, Young Animals is kind of some, present day funhouse mirror of Vertigo Comics, which was a funhouse mirror of classic but obscure DC characters like Doom Patrol and Animal Man and such. So I was pretty psyched for this, and totally open to it going in, and I loved the art. But I am just left, I will definitely keep getting this for a few more issues. I didn't hate it. I just felt a little uncertain whether the writer, who is a famous rock star, Gerard Way, and I've read parts of his other work, and it was decent. I just don't know if he can pull off, he's trying very hard to be Grant Morrison-like. And to a certain extent, what he's doing is a certain amount of non sequitur stuff that maybe all will fit together later, or maybe will just remain non sequiturs. And there's my worry. There's nothing other than my excitement over Robot Man, just because he's a familiar, fun character. There was nothing here that grabbed me. The characters were okay. I just didn't feel deeply into the book. I felt into the artwork and the coloring, but the writing was okay. But and it's a $3.99 book, so I could definitely see switching to waiting for trades for it. I did not have the guts to peel the sticker off. I kind of, from the interior work about when someone talks about an imaginary world inside a gyro, or a hero, that is, a hero sandwich, which may or may not really exist. I assume it does. I can kind of picture what might be under here. I'll have to look and see if anyone on their videos has peeled off the cover. If I find a cheap copy in a cheap bin someday, maybe I'll peel it off. So that was fun. I feel like I'm being hard on it, but there was something about it that just hit me wrong. It kind of gave me I wrote on Twitter, it gave me a headache when I was reading it on my lunch break. I just wanted a little more confidence in the linearity of things at the end of the day. I've only read parts of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. I kind of came in and out of it back when it was being published. I remember having fun reading it, but maybe it wasn't my favorite thing anyway. At the time. Okay, here's something that I thought was very promising, and I've pretty much told my shop I'll take any new Black Mask #1 because I'm very interested in what Black Mask is doing. And this is kind of almost a traditional story about 4 characters who've in some way sold their souls to the devil to be successful, done some dark magic act, which we see at the beginning. And it's pretty well done that way, and I assume I'll just keep reading this. what did I want to say about it, though? The further in I read, the more I got the sense that this wasn't just, someone using Photoshops to make art look very photographic, but it might literally be that every panel is a photograph that they used Photoshop to make it look more painterly. I just, more and more as it went along, I don't know if if I believed it was all painting, whether I'd be more into the art than if I think it's photographs, or whether the photographic quality of it after a while would push me out of this a bit. But, I wouldn't want a lot of comic books to be like this, but I can deal with a comic book or two that's mostly made out of doctored photographs. It's an interesting, way. It kind of makes us all feel like maybe we could make a comic book if we took enough photographs and learned a little bit of Photoshop. A long time ago, when I used to do more Photoshop, I've certainly taken photos and made them look like charcoal drawings and made them look like Van Gogh paintings and all of those kind of filter things. So it's not like a wildly original plot, and it's not like art to die for, but it is interesting. It's well put together, and the characters are interesting. So I don't know. I'm probably in it because I assume most of these Black Mask things are actually just going to go for a trade's worth or so. So I'll probably keep getting it. Although I suppose if I dropped it now, I could get the trade cheaper. I don't know. I loved this cover, by the way, but it doesn't have much to do with the interior. So yeah, it's not a bad comic. It's not a bad comic. I think I thought something more radical or something more interesting would come out of Black Mask. And maybe what they think of themselves is as for the kind of more radical young reader. So someone who's 20 might relate to these characters even more than I do, although I relate to them okay, and maybe not notice some of the familiar plot or tropes. But maybe someone who's 20 would. I mean, there's a lot of movies with this kind of story too. I mean, it's just a story idea that's around a lot. House of Penance ended strong. And I continue to love the art. There's this long sequence of the, this is a big spoiler, I guess, of the house. So don't watch if you haven't read House of Penance, and at this point stop. It's the end of the video anyway. But so there's this long crashing of the house, and I really enjoyed that. It does seem like it should be a fold out. And I've heard people say maybe they'll do that in the trade, or people hoping so, and I guess that's cool. But in a way, it was kind of fun to keep turning the page and turning the page and turning the page and seeing more and more crashing. Actually, that worked really well for me. These giant tubes of blood everywhere. I think there was something about this book that made me expect an even bigger ending than we got. The ending was a nice blending of the kind of supernatural experience that one or two of the characters is experiencing this as, and a kind of real-life earthquake that knocked down the building. Of course, that's more extreme than what an actual earthquake would look, as far as I understand earthquakes. But it was cool, and it gave a nice what's the word for it? Where you a nice catharsis for all the characters at the end, and not too unrealistic. But I kind of wanted. I secretly was hoping for even more supernatural to like burst out at us at the end of this book instead of just return to reality. So yeah. But that's kind of unfair of me. So this was really good. I would say get it in trade, pick up the back issues, read it digitally. This is one that, although, sometimes I love to get, if I really love some art, I then want to get it digitally too. This is one that worked really well on the page, and would be one of my least choices for a digital read, in my opinion, my take on it. Of course, I could try reading it digitally and find I disagree with myself. But, yeah, like, I don't know. there's just all these kind of progressions that I felt, really worked well on the page. I super look forward to seeing what comic book Ian Bertram will do next. I am now a huge fan of Ian Bertram. I hope he does more kind of weird indie work, because that is definitely where he belongs. But I hope it pays him well enough so that he maybe a popular Image book or something. Brian K. Vaughan should team up with him. Or maybe better, he would be a good team up with Jason Aaron, I think. A Jason Aaron Image book with this art style would be really cool, in my opinion. Okay, I hope to be back with quite soon with the comic book thoughts on all the Rebirth I've been reading recently, all the DC Rebirth. I have still been reading a boatload of DC. So I may be single-handedly increasing their stock value right now on the stock exchange. Talk to you all later.